It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. This is your feel-good breakfast show, Expresso on SABC3. And as I said earlier on, news has broke, of course, that the Department of Defense is prepared to send in the army to help to quell these xenophobic attacks that are happening all around the country. But right now, we've got Mr. Stephen Faulkner on the line, who's the coordinating committee member of the People's March Against Xenophobia, talking to us about what is happening in Johannesburg this afternoon. Stephen, thank you very much for taking our call.
It's a pleasure. Thanks. Nice to be with you.
So, Stephen, I've got to hear your thoughts on what you think of the Department of Defense taking this step, or at least saying that they are willing to send in the army to try and quell those xenophobic attacks.
Well, it's a bit of a mixed mess, really, because on the one hand, if the police and other community services had the capacity, then there'd be no need for the army to step in. Mm-hmm. And we must see the army, I think, as a bit of a desperate, I'm afraid to say, needed measure at the moment to give protection to the embattled communities who are facing xenophobia. But very much we see it as a short-term measure. Mm-hmm. And really what we need to do is have a more lasting solution and not just be responding to crises when they occur, and have a lasting solution of engagement both with communities who are being victimised, but also those people in those communities who are perpetrators, mm-hmm. to try and find more peaceful ways of dealing with this crisis.
Indeed. Now, also, the news that the South African consulate in Lagos, Nigeria, has also been closed as a result of the unrest in the country. That, of course, is a result of these xenophobic attacks that are happening in our country right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we do think it's something of a reflection of continental and, if you like, global concern that our government here is perhaps not doing enough to protect the people who are living here. And there is a sense of hopelessness out there and great disappointment, we have to say, given the moral authority of South Africa, given its history and so on. Mm-hmm. So we're not surprised that's happening. We do believe that this should be an opportunity for our governments on the continent to get together and think about more regional and more practical development plans. Yeah. One, to make sure that there's a sharing of the wealth of our continent, but also to make sure that regional development takes place, which means that the need to move from one country to another is minimised, especially in terms of escaping war and poverty and so on.
Exactly. And in trying to find a solution to the problem, and you as a foreigner who's been living in South Africa, where do you think this xenophobia emanates from?
Well, I think it's a complex question, but that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't try and resolve it. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody makes reference to the legacy of alienation and so on that happened under apartheid and so on, and I think that manifests itself in many, many ways in our society, not least in the sort of desperate acts of violence which take place, and which many communities, I think, are now of the view that it's only when they take action which might result in violent activity. I don't think it's planned in that way, but which might result is when they're actually listened to. So there is a deep crisis of representation in our country where people are saying, who represents my interests? Who can I go to resolve the problems that I'm faced with? And it's those sorts of issues we've really got to address and find more peaceful ways of delivering to our people which are meaningful and so on.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think that's exactly the point of the People's March Against Xenophobia that's happening today, in order to start those points of conversation and engagement. But Stephen, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Stephen Faulkner there, the coordinating committee member of the People's March Against Xenophobia. And if you wish to take part in the march, it starts at Pieter Roos Park in Hillbrow. That will be today at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So if you are able to attend, please do so as we continue to try and solve, I guess, our country's problems that are having far-reaching effects up the continent, and of course on our reflection as a country all across the world as well. But right now, Ewan and Graham, over to you guys.